What if the craziest myths you've ever heard were just badly labeled facts? Ancient cities no one believed in, high-tech gadgets from the Iron Age, and possible real monsters that were actually just nature showing off. Today, we're going through 20 historical lies that turned out to be disturbingly real. This isn't mythology, it's history with a plot twist. 1. We all know the majestic, sparkly unicorn from fairy tales, while history's version was less magical rainbow pony and more furry one-horned tank. Meet the Elasmotherium sibiricum, also known as the Siberian unicorn. This thing was a massive, hairy rhinoceros that roamed Eurasia and could weigh up to 4 tons with a single colossal horn smack in the middle of its forehead. For centuries, tales of a one-horned creature in the East were dismissed as pure fantasy, but paleontologists eventually found the fossils to prove it lived alongside early humans. So yes, unicorns were real. They just weren't the elegant creatures you'd want on a t-shirt, unless that t-shirt says, "I survived a multi-ton battering ram." 2. The Kraken, a legendary sea monster so massive it could pull entire ships into the abyss. For sailors, it was the ultimate nightmare. For everyone else, it was just a tall tale fueled by too much rum. While it might not be an island-sized beast, the legend was almost certainly inspired by the giant squid. These creatures can grow over 40 feet long with eyes the size of dinner plates and tentacles lined with serrated suckers. Imagine being a 17th century sailor and seeing those giant arms emerge from the dark water. You wouldn't call it a squid, you'd call it a monster. 3. The legend of the Visha Kanyas, or poison damsels, sounds like an ancient James Bond movie. The story goes that beautiful young women in ancient India were raised from birth on a diet of tiny doses of poison until they became immune, but their own bodily fluids became lethal. For a long time, this was considered pure folklore, a cautionary tale about femme fatales. However, historical texts like the Arthashastra confirmed that the Mauryan Empire actually used these women as elite assassins. A single kiss or a scratch could be a death sentence for a rival king. It takes the concept of a toxic relationship to a literal, deadly level. 4. If you think modern medicine is stressful, imagine getting brain surgery 7,000 years ago. The procedure was called trepanation, and it involved drilling or scraping a hole into the human skull. For years, historians thought these holes in ancient skulls were part of a gruesome post-mortem ritual, but archaeologists found something mind-boggling. Many of these skulls showed clear signs of bone healing. This means the patients didn't just survive the surgery, they lived for years afterward. 5. Local folklore on the Indonesian island of Flores told stories of the Ibu Gogo, tiny, hairy people who lived in caves and spoke in whispers. Scientists ignored it as just another jungle myth. That was until 2003, when researchers discovered the remains of Homo floresiensis. This was a distinct species of human that stood only 3 feet tall and lived on the island until relatively recently. They weren't just a story, they were a real branch of the human family tree that lived alongside our ancestors. 6. There's a massive historical myth that everyone in 1912 believed the Titanic was unsinkable, which led to the arrogance that caused the disaster. You've seen it in the movies, right? Here's the plot twist. The White Star Line never actually claimed the ship was unsinkable before it launched. In their promotional brochures, they said it was designed to be as nearly unsinkable as possible. The legend of the unsinkable ship was actually a media creation that happened after it sank to make the story more dramatic. The myth isn't the ship, it's the story we told ourselves about why it went down. 7. For thousands of years, the city of thonis-heracleion was known only from ancient Greek texts. It was described as a fabulously wealthy port city, the gateway to Egypt. But because no physical trace could be found, historians eventually labeled it a myth. Then, in the year 2000, underwater archaeologists found it resting at the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea. They discovered giant statues, gold coins, and sunken ships, all perfectly preserved under the silt. It wasn't destroyed by fire. The ground it was built on literally liquefied, and the city sank into the sea in a single day. 8. The Viking sagas mentioned a sunstone that allowed sailors to find the sun's position even on completely cloudy days or after the sun had set. For centuries, historians thought this was a magical metaphor, but in 2011, researchers found that a specific crystal called Icelandic spar can polarize light. If you look through it, you can pinpoint the sun with 1% accuracy, even in a thick fog. A piece of this crystal was even found in an Elizabethan shipwreck alongside navigation tools. The magic stone was actually a high-tech optical compass. 9. Herman Melville's Moby Dick wasn't just a random story about a grumpy whale. It was based on a real, famous, and terrifying albino sperm whale named Mocha Dick. This whale was a legend among 19th century whalers in the Pacific. He was massive, white as wool, and unlike most whales that would flee, Mocha Dick would actively charge at ships and smash them into pieces. He reportedly survived encounters with over 100 harpoons before finally being killed. 10. For nearly a century, maps of Africa showed the massive mountains of Kong. Explorers finally went to find them and found nothing. Turns out they misunderstood real reports of the Guinean highlands and drew them in the wrong place. The mountains existed, just not how Europeans imagined. 11. King George III was mocked for the legend that his urine turned blue during his madness, but modern research suggests he suffered from porphyria, a real disorder that can literally turn urine purple or blue. The myth was an early medical observation. 12. The ancient Greeks didn't just philosophize, they built tech. The Antikythera mechanism, pulled from a shipwreck, used 30-plus bronze gears to predict eclipses and planetary motion. It's basically an analog computer, 1,500 years ahead of its time. 13. The Amazons weren't just myth. Archaeologists uncovered Scythian warrior graves, and a huge number belonged to women, complete with weapons and battle injuries. The Greeks didn't invent warrior women, they actually fought them. 14. Animal rain sounded like superstition until science explained it. Waterspouts can suck up fish or frogs, carry them in storm clouds, and drop them over land. Not divine judgment, just extreme weather being weird. 15. The curse of King Tut terrified the world when people started dying after entering the tomb, but scientists discovered toxic ancient mold inside sealed chambers. Breathing it in could cause deadly infections. Less ancient magic, more ancient microbiology. 16. The biblical story of cities destroyed by fire from the sky sounded symbolic until archaeologists in Jordan found a Bronze Age city wiped out instantly by a cosmic airburst. Melted pottery, shocked quartz, all signs of an exploding meteor. 17. For centuries, the White City of Honduras sounded like fantasy. Then LiDAR scans revealed an entire hidden civilization. Plazas, pyramids, statues, swallowed by jungle. The legend was real, it was just hiding. 18. El Dorado wasn't a city, it was a man. The Muisca king was covered in gold dust and dove into Lake Guataita during coronation rituals. Spaniards heard the story, then invented a golden city to chase. 19. The Trojan War was long treated as fiction until Heinrich Schliemann dug into Turkey and found the remains of a massive fortified city destroyed by war and fire. The horse may be mythical, but Troy wasn't. 20. The famous ghost ship mystery wasn't supernatural. An alcohol cargo leak likely caused a small explosion. Fearing a bigger blast, the captain ordered everyone into lifeboats. They drifted away, and the ship simply kept sailing. History isn't boring, it's misunderstood. Sometimes myths are just real events wrapped in exaggeration, fear, and time. Which one surprised you the most? Drop it in the comments, hit subscribe for more strange history, and stay curious.